In every society, there is a line you're not supposed to cross. It's not written in any law. It's not posted on any wall. No one explains it to you, not directly, but you feel it. A pressure, a weight, a silent expectation to stay within the boundaries of what everyone else accepts as normal. This is the unspoken rule. And the moment you think differently, the moment you question what everyone else has agreed not to question, you discover something most people never realize. The punishment doesn't come from the system first. It comes from the people, from friends, from family, from co-workers, from the community that once embraced you until you broke the script. Because thinking differently isn't just an idea, it's a violation, a breach in the invisible contract that keeps society predictable, comfortable, orderly. People don't reject you because you're wrong. They reject you because you're different. And different threatens the structure everyone depends on. In this world, conformity isn't encouraged, it's enforced. Quietly, subtly, relentlessly. Some people learn this early. Others only discover it when they finally have a thought that doesn't fit. And that's when the cost begins. Isolation, ridicule, dismissal, opportunities quietly drying up, doors closing without explanation, not because you broke a law, but because you broke an illusion. The illusion that we all think the same. Tonight, we step into that world, the world of the unseen penalties, the invisible walls, the social consequences that shape our beliefs long before we realize we're being shaped at all. This is the story of what happens when you choose your own mind over the crowd. The social penalty. The punishment for thinking differently rarely arrives as a dramatic explosion. It comes quietly, almost politely. A subtle shift in the way people look at you. A silence in conversations where your voice used to matter. A certain distance, small at first, that slowly widens every time you speak a truth others aren't ready to hear. This is the social penalty, the first and most effective form of control. Not enforced by governments, not imposed by institutions, but exercised by the people around you, often without realizing they're doing it. The first stage, doubt. It starts with raised eyebrows, the slight tilt of a head, a pause before someone responds to you. A message communicated without words. You're stepping out of bounds. Humans are wired for belonging. And few things feel more threatening than discovering your thoughts no longer match the group. So, the group acts instinctively. They question you, not your ideas, you. You become the strange one, the difficult one, the one making things complicated. The second stage is labeling. Once doubt settles in, the next stage begins. Labeling. It's one of the oldest social weapons we have and one of the most effective. The words change depending on the culture, the era, or the environment, but the function stays the same: to reduce you, to contain you, to make your perspective small and dismissible. Paranoid, dramatic, negative, difficult, not a team player, conspiracy thinker. Once you've been labeled, the content of your ideas no longer matters. The label does the work for them. It tells the group, "Don't listen." The third stage is distancing. This is when people quietly begin to pull back. A friend who used to call weekly now takes a little longer to respond. A coworker who once confided in you becomes strangely formal. Invitations stop arriving. Your presence becomes optional, then inconvenient, then avoided. No confrontation, no argument, no direct hostility. Just distance. A gentle but undeniable drifting away. Not because you're dangerous, but because you've stepped outside the shared narrative that keeps people feeling safe. The fourth stage, correction. If distancing doesn't bring you back into the group's mental boundaries, something more active appears. Correction. Not from authority, but from people who believe they're helping you. They tell you to be careful, to stay quiet, to not overthink things, to let it go. It sounds caring, supportive, protective, but underneath the softness is something cold. Return to the script. Why this happens? People don't punish you because they're cruel. They punish you because you remind them of something they've spent years trying not to see. That the world they accept without question might not be as stable, honest, or simple as they've convinced themselves. Your independent thought threatens their psychological safety. And people will defend psychological safety the way they defend physical safety. Instinctively, emotionally, aggressively, without ever admitting that's what they're doing. The invisible cost. By this stage, you may feel it. You're still part of the world, but no longer in it. You become an outsider inside your own life. Someone who sees too much. Someone who hears what others ignore. Someone who asks questions they've trained themselves never to think about. And the price for that awareness isn't fame. It isn't glory. It isn't enlightenment. It's loneliness. Not total isolation, just a subtle, constant, gnawing sense that you no longer fit into the puzzle everyone else accepts without hesitation. You don't get punished for being wrong. You get punished for noticing. The architects of conformity. If the social penalty is the first barrier, the next one is deeper, older, and far more deliberate. Because conformity isn't just a habit, it's engineered, maintained, reinforced, protected. Not always by shadowy figures in dark rooms, but by the very structures we trust to guide us, the ones we're raised to obey. These are the architects of conformity, the forces that don't just influence how we think, but define what we are allowed to think. The first architect, the education system. Every society begins its shaping early. Long before a child understands what truth is, they're taught what acceptable truth looks like. Sit still. Follow instructions. Memorize. Repeat. Don't question the authority figure. Don't disrupt the lesson. Don't challenge the system. Schools don't just produce educated citizens, they produce compliant ones. Not through malice, but through habit. Children who think differently get labeled problem students. Kids who ask too many questions are told they're being difficult. Those who move against the flow get pushed toward correction, not curiosity. It isn't education, it's orientation, preparing you for the rules you'll never be told, but always be expected to follow. The second architect, workplace culture. By adulthood, the training is complete. Now comes the next layer, subtle but rigid. Corporate conformity. Innovation is encouraged, but only the kind that doesn't challenge the hierarchy. Creative thinking is praised as long as it doesn't threaten anyone's power. The employee who follows quietly is described as professional. The one who questions process becomes a disruption. The one who sees the flaws becomes a problem. The one who speaks truth becomes a risk. Workplaces reward those who adapt. They punish those who think. And it's usually not written in any policy. It happens socially, quietly, through performance reviews, missed opportunities, and polite rejections with a smile. Then there's the grand architect, the one that shapes entire populations. Media. Not just news, entertainment, trends, social platforms, algorithms. These are the storytellers that decide what normal looks like and punish what falls outside it. People believe their opinions are independent. Few realize how often they're echoes. When every headline, every meme, every video reinforces the same worldview, thinking differently starts to feel like an act of rebellion. Not because the thought is dangerous, but because the media has convinced the crowd it is. The system doesn't need to silence you directly. It just needs to influence everyone around you so that they do it on its behalf. But the most powerful architect isn't institutional. It's cultural. The unwritten rule book of society. What you should believe. What you should support. What you should avoid saying. What you should find offensive. What you should keep quiet about. These shoulds form the invisible jail that most people never escape because the bars are made of approval. People fear disapproval more than they fear being wrong. The need to fit in is ancient, older than civilization, older than language, older than self-awareness.
And so, society doesn't need to punish you harshly, just enough to remind everyone else what happens when someone leaves the herd. This is how conformity sustains itself, not with violence, but with the quiet threat of exclusion. The real power. The architects don't need to control your thoughts. They just need to shape the environment that makes you control them yourself. That's the elegance of the design. A system that doesn't silence you. It convinces you to silence yourself.
Those who paid the price. Abstract ideas are easy to ignore, but the cost of thinking differently becomes undeniable when you see the people who lived it and paid for it. Across history and in our modern world, the pattern repeats. Those who step outside the accepted narrative, who dare to see what others refuse to look at, are met not with curiosity, but with consequences. Tonight, we examine both. Case Study 1. Galileo, the man who saw too much. In the early 1600s, Galileo looked through a telescope and discovered something terrifying. The universe didn't match the story everyone believed. He didn't shout it. He didn't try to start a revolution. He simply shared what he saw. And the world snapped back, not because his ideas were wrong, but because they threatened the world view of an entire society. The church labeled him dangerous. Academics turned against him. Friends distanced themselves. His writings were banned. Finally, he was placed under house arrest, not for a crime of violence, but for a crime of thought. 400 years later, we celebrate him as a visionary, but in his lifetime, he was punished for refusing to pretend he didn't see the truth. Case Study 2. Alan Turing, the mind too far ahead. During World War II, Alan Turing cracked the Nazi Enigma code, saving millions of lives. You would think society would honor him. Instead, they targeted him. Not for mistakes, not for failure, not for wrongdoing, for being different. His personal life didn't fit the accepted narrative of the time, and so society, the same society he helped protect, turned on him. He was isolated, stripped of dignity, silenced, broken. His brilliance wasn't enough to save him from the cost. Because when you think differently and live differently, you become a threat to the structure, even if you never intended to be. Case Study 3. The modern whistleblower. Today, you don't have to challenge the universe or break uncrackable codes. You only have to tell the truth. From tech employees exposing algorithmic manipulation to government analysts revealing unethical surveillance, to scientists questioning corporate narratives, the pattern persists. Those who reveal what others deny face online mobs, career destruction, media smearing, social exile, algorithmic suppression, legal intimidation, character assassination. Not because they're lying, but because their truth
disrupts someone's comfort. Case Study 4. Everyday people who speak up. You don't need a famous name to experience the cost. A nurse who reported unsafe practices, a teacher who questioned curriculum, a student who challenged a biased policy, an employee who pointed out corruption, a citizen who asked the wrong question online. In every case, the backlash follows a familiar rhythm. First, people avoid you. Then, they discredit you. Then, they isolate you. Then, they replace you. Not because you're mistaken, but because your perspective creates friction in a world built on smooth obedience. The pattern: different equals dangerous. Every example, from Galileo to Turing to modern whistleblowers to everyday people, reveals the same truth. Society protects its illusions more fiercely than it protects its truth. And those who think differently aren't punished for being incorrect. They are punished for seeing too clearly, for stepping outside the mental boundaries others depend on, for noticing the cracks in the system everyone else agrees to ignore. This is the cost. Not persecution from tyrants, but correction from the crowd. History repeats because human psychology repeats. Across centuries, across cultures, across worlds. The names change. The penalty doesn't.
The psychological war. When society pushes back against someone who thinks differently, it isn't just a social conflict. It becomes a psychological war. A quiet battle fought internally, not with weapons, but with doubt, shame, fear, and isolation. Because the most effective way to silence an independent mind is not to attack it from the outside. It's to make it question itself from the inside. The first front, doubt as a weapon. Humans are social creatures. Our sense of reality is shaped not individually, but collectively. When the group rejects your perspective, your brain interprets that rejection as a threat. You begin to wonder, am I wrong? Did I go too far? Should I keep this to myself? Why does no one else see it? This internal conflict is not a flaw. It is evolution, the instinct to stay aligned with the tribe. Because deviation once meant danger, and society uses that instinct against you. Not intentionally, but effectively. Doubt becomes a leash, soft, invisible, and devastatingly strong. The second front, shame engineering. When you think differently, you challenge the emotional foundation of the group, and the group responds by assigning you something powerful: shame. Shame is psychological fire. It forces you inward. It makes you hide. It convinces you that your perspective is not only wrong, but embarrassing. You see it everywhere. The student mocked for asking the weird question. The employee humiliated for pointing out an inconvenient truth. The friend belittled for seeing patterns others pretend aren't there. Shame is how society trains you to self-censor long before the system needs to step in. The third front, gaslighting through consensus. When a large enough group rejects your truth, something unsettling happens. Consensus starts to overwrite reality. You might see something clearly, a contradiction, a flaw, a manipulation. But if no one else acknowledges it, you begin to second-guess your own mind. This is the psychological power of the crowd. When everyone disagrees with you, their denial becomes a kind of pressure. Not physical, not explicit, but mental. A collective gaslighting effect, one that makes you feel that the problem isn't the situation, it's you. And once you believe you are the issue, you no longer challenge the situation. The fourth front, isolation. Isolation is not a punishment, it is a strategy. The moment you begin to think differently, you are pushed to the edges of social circles, not shunned entirely, but kept at a distance. This creates a psychological vacuum. Humans depend on connection for stability. Remove connection, and the mind becomes vulnerable, uncertain, fragile, desperate for belonging. In that state, people are more likely to abandon their independent thought just to regain acceptance. This is not coincidence. This is not random. It is how society sustains itself. The final stage of the psychological war is the most dangerous. When the mind begins to police itself, you stop speaking your thoughts. Then you stop exploring your thoughts. Eventually, you stop having thoughts that challenge the structure. At that point, society has won. Not by force, but by training you to silence your own mind. And here lies the tragedy. Most people never realize they obey, because the command never needed to be spoken. The cost of thinking differently is not simply external punishment. It is the internal erosion of certainty, clarity, confidence, and identity. This is the invisible battlefield, the one where the wounds cannot be seen, but are felt deeply. And yet, some people continue. Despite the resistance, despite the isolation, despite the psychological warfare, some minds will not be controlled. The question is, why?
The people who keep thinking anyway. Most people break under the pressure, not because they are weak, but because they were never taught how to stand alone. But a few, a very small few, refuse to surrender their mind. These are the people who keep thinking differently, even when the world pushes back, even when the psychological war becomes overwhelming. Why? Because something inside them refuses to die. Not rebellion, not arrogance, not ego, but clarity. A sense that something is off, that something doesn't add up, that reality has seams and they can feel them pulling apart. These people don't think differently because it's trendy. They think differently because they can't unsee what they see. The first trait: they outgrow approval. Most people chase acceptance. Independent minds chase understanding. Once you stop needing permission to think, The world loses its power to cage you. Approval becomes irrelevant. Belonging becomes optional. Truth becomes the only compass. The second trait: they refuse the preloaded answers. Society hands you answers early in life, ready-made, pre-packaged, convenient. But some people pause and ask, where did this idea come from? Who benefits from me believing it? What if the explanation I was given is incomplete? That single moment, that tiny act of hesitation is enough to break the spell. One question turns into two, two into 10, 10 into a worldview no longer compatible with the default setting. The third trait: they see the patterns others look away from. Controlled minds see events. Independent minds see systems. While most people focus on the noise, these individuals watch the structure behind it. They notice the repetition, the same tactics, the same narratives, the same manufactured outrage, the same cycle of distraction and control. Where others see coincidences, they see design. Where others see chaos, they see intention. The fourth trait: they stay curious. Curiosity is a rebellion by itself. A curious mind can't be fully controlled because it always searches beyond the surface. Curiosity leads to learning. Learning leads to awareness. Awareness leads to autonomy. And autonomy is the enemy of every system built on obedience. The fifth trait: their identity is internal, not external. Most people define themselves through social groups, culture, politics, religious labels, trends, online tribes. But the ones who keep thinking differently have an identity anchored inside, not outside. You cannot manipulate a person whose sense of self isn't tied to the approval of the crowd. They don't bend, they don't break, they don't dissolve into conformity. Their identity is self-directed, and that is power. The final trait: they accept the cost. The ultimate reason they continue? Because they accept the cost. They understand what thinking differently demands: loneliness, misunderstanding, resistance, exile from the comfortable illusion. But they also understand the alternative: living a life where your mind is not your own, where your thoughts are pre-approved, where your reality is outsourced, where your voice is muted by fear. And they choose clarity even when clarity hurts. They choose truth even when truth isolates. They choose thought even when thought has a price. The people who think differently are not chosen. They're not born special. They simply refuse to give up the most valuable thing a human can own: their mind.
What happens when you finally break the last chain? When you stop thinking the way they want, stop living the way they expect, stop believing the way they trained you? What happens when the illusion collapses? You lose the world you knew, but you gain the world as it truly is. Your relationships shift, your priorities change, your sense of reality sharpens. You no longer fit into the old conversations. You no longer participate in the manufactured drama. You no longer confuse comfort with truth. You start to see, most people don't want freedom. They want permission. Permission to repeat, permission to obey, permission to stay inside the lines so they never feel alone. But you walked past the lines. You stepped outside the script. And something incredible happens when you do. 1. You become immune to manipulation. Once you see how narratives are built, how fear is used, how division is engineered, how opinions are manufactured, you can't be controlled by them. You develop a filter sharper than any weapon. You stop absorbing. You start analyzing. You don't react. You observe. And suddenly, their power over you dissolves. 2. You start choosing your own reality. People don't realize this. Most of their thoughts were installed, not created. But once you break the spell, you start building thoughts from scratch. You choose your beliefs. You choose your values. You choose your direction. Your life becomes intentional, not inherited. 3. You attract people who think for themselves. Your old circle may fade, but something else forms in the space they leave behind. A new circle, rare, small, powerful. Individuals who think deeply, who question boldly, who speak honestly, who see through illusions just like you. These are the people who build new systems, new ideas, new futures. This is the lost tribe of independent minds, and once you find them, you realize you were never alone, just uncommon. 4. You stop fearing the crowd. Because once you've survived standing alone, you understand something most people never learn. The crowd is only powerful when you're afraid of losing it. You're not. You've already paid the price, and you're still standing. That makes you dangerous not because you want power, but because you cannot be ruled by fear. 5. You become fully, untouchably yourself. This is the final stage, the place few people ever reach, the reason why thinking differently is worth the cost. You become someone the system cannot predict, and therefore cannot control. Not because you fight it, but because you don't need it. Your identity comes from within. Your direction comes from clarity. Your strength comes from understanding. You didn't escape society. You escaped the version designed to contain you. And now, you walk freely, fully awake, fully aware, fully responsible for your own mind. Thinking differently will cost you. It always has, it always will. But losing your mind to keep the world's approval, that cost is far greater. Because at the end of your life, you don't answer to the crowd. You answer to yourself. And whether you lived with your eyes open or closed. And only one of those paths leads to truth. Only one leads to freedom.